And you can answer these questions too. I'm just making sure that they know how to raise their hands, so feel free to raise your hands as well. So, first off, how many of you are on social media? Anyone on social media? Okay, wonderful. Please do feel free to turn on your phone. As I said, you can record, take photos, shout out the people who say interesting things, which we'll know about all of them. The show is on all of the socials that you would imagine, at Live Firebird. The King's Head is also, that's its Twitter handle. We don't like Twitter anymore. Instagram and others. And I think pretty much all of you are on Instagram. Everyone's on Instagram, so you can find their handles on that and other selected. If you tag me in anything, I'll also share. If you please do post about it. It really helps spread the word about the show. Will you guys share if they tag you? Yeah, maybe. So incentives. So Instagram, I am still on Twitter for my sins. And Blue Sky. Let's all build up Blue Sky. Yeah. So I'm there. No? Boo? Okay.
We want to balance it.
Fair enough. Anyway, but yes, do spread the word about the show. Okay, next question. This play that we've just seen, originally this is a true story, you probably know if you booked tickets, based on a memoir that was then turned into a film, and now this is the world premiere stage version. So, hands up. Who read the book? Anyone read the book? Okay, a few hands. Who saw the film? Who's raising their hand? Who read the book? Saw the film? Yeah, okay. Very good. Has anyone seen Firebird the opera? I'm going to be really impressed by this. Ballet. You better guess that shows money. Ballet. Way. Okay. And has anyone served in the Soviet military?
Well, we all have.
Okay, and finally, most importantly, who knows they've already got a question they want to ask? Okay, we'll come to you later then. Okay, so then let me introduce, and please save all your applause till the end. Rob Eades, Nigel Hastings, Theo Walker, Sorcha Kennedy, and the writer, Richard Hough. We're going to talk to Rich, but just for the first introduction.
No, that's all right.
Okay.
That's okay.
So now, I also want to say, for those of you on the stage with me, obviously you know the piece, the creative process, everything much better than all of us do. So if we are missing something very interesting, please steer us in the right direction and ask the questions we might not ask. But I'm going to start with a really basic one to start with you, Rich. Tell us, given what I've just said about the previous versions of this story, tell us a little bit about the journey of Sergei and Roman's story and how it came to where we are now.
Well, in 36,000 words or less, it's an interesting tale in that there's an Estonian film director and actually polymath. He does all kinds of wonderful artwork called Peter Raban. And he and his writing partner Tom Pryor found this story. It was published in Russian in the late 90s. Sergei, the real life Sergei, lived until relatively recently. And Peter and Tom approached Sergei about turning this into a film. They met him in Moscow, and they got another side of the tale. The book is it's a beautiful sort of paean to forbidden love that was written as much as a poem to Rome as it was a diary. So they managed to interview Sergei before he died and get the facts, get the situation, get the stakes, get the other proper nouns, and they turn this into a beautiful elegiac.
Yes,
elegiac film. I just won't say it again. A beautiful film, and then when James Seabright, the greatest producer in the West End, James Seabright,
yes,
approached me about adapting it. The idea was, well, with any adaptation from one medium to another, you have to justify it by creating something that can sit as a companion and not take away the fun from the other, or the fire from the other. So my conversations with Peter was to write something, was to find a side that is a blend of the film and the book, but also takes a different, arguably more British, because what's interesting is both the book and the film are written by ex-Soviets or Estonia was under Soviet occupation, and this has been written by, I mean, I won't tell you how old I am. It's a whimsy more than 25. But
it's safe to say we remember the Cold War.
we remember the Cold War, I think it's fair. And so coming from that perspective and growing up with the spy fiction at the time, so it was a challenge to create something that, again, is a companion piece. It sits with them. I encourage you to see the film. If you enjoy the play, to see the film and see the book, you'll get enriching but totally different experiences. And and the play was a result of that. One of the things we didn't have was some of the photography, because I mean the cast are relatively good looking, but they aim to vista. So there are ingredients in the play that aren't necessarily in the others, because it's a different medium. One of them being jokes, some of which, God bless you all, you laughed at. So that's the story.
Okay, so then just briefly, then
get that.
then we're going to come for the exit.
That was brief.
So you're talking about two different original source materials. So what
Yes.
did you read the book? You watched the film? Did
Yes.
you have it like side by side? Did you just start with a blank page? Tell us about the process.
The process is, briefly, my God, read the book, saw the film several times, read the script, read the draft scripts of the film, then put them all away into a quiet little box guarded by a very angry bear called Onesie. We don't need to go into that, it's a digression. And then started from scratch, effectively, with the same sort of broad plot as the film, but taking certain artifacts from the book. And that sketch was turned into a script that was then dramaturged by Owen, the director, who can't be here today because he's doing something terribly important, dancing on ice. And I'm
Yes.
probably not meant to mention.
Oh, that's Owen Lewis, and he's a good friend of mine, and I won't forget him for
No, he's a devil, but he's brilliant. And he took the script on a journey with me. He was a director and dramaturg, which is for those who don't know, the stupid theatre word for script editor. Still don't know. It's probably from the Latin. And that was the journey. That was the journey over the last year. It's taken a year.
A year. Okay, that's what we were getting for.
Okay.
It was a year. Okay. So,
Now your turn.
did you guys have him in the rehearsal room every
Oh,
day?
yeah, we did. Yeah. No, he was very helpful. Usually you have to do quite a lot of research. We didn't. We just asked Richard.
Well, I was going to ask about research, but let's rewind. Actors. So, what was your experience? I didn't notice who was raising hands. Had any of you seen the film or read the book beforehand? What did you think when this script first landed in your hands? Let's start with Theo.
I didn't know the story at all, so I hadn't read the book, and I didn't know about the film. I remember in the audition they had asked me, so have you had a chance to look at those things? And I said no.
Honesty gets too far.
But then when we started the process, the director said, okay, well let's just focus on this, and then you can watch it after we've done our rehearsing, which is what I did. So I watched the film after the fact, and read the book after we had kind of done about 3-4 weeks rehearsal. So yeah, and I think that was a good way around to do it, because I didn't want to have any sort of preconceived ideas of how I should be, embodying this character. I just kind of brought myself to it first, and then kind of adapted.
Yes. So you made Sorcha your own from the beginning. And what about you, Ralph and Roman?
I actually watched the film before. I took a different route.
Okay.
I watched the film before my audition, and then when they asked me about the film, I said, I thought the film was alright, but I think the play script was much better.
Very clever. Very clever. I like it.
He was in the audition.
Richard smiled, Owen smiled. I didn't read, and they gave me the job. That was
Progressive ever since.
Very clever. Now, Nigel, Nigel and I did a Q&A together. It was only a couple of months ago. You were in the Forsyth Saga, if anyone saw that, the two-part another adaptation at the Park Theatre. Very different indeed. You must have been still in that when I guess
Yeah, we
this
were.
came
Yeah,
about.
yeah, I was. We were rehearsing this during the day, and I was doing that.
Didn't we know about it?
No,
that's not fair.
I just encourage you to come to maybe learn something. Obviously, he didn't.
And what did you think of your character when you read the
I've played a few generals and colonels and stuff. I really liked him. I think partly because you see the human side of him,
Yeah.
but also because you kind of see the sort of playfulness and how he's always kind of trying to upset people and unsettle them and kind of undermine them. And I kind of like that. It's quite difficult to learn.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I
Why
really
is
like
it
that.
difficult to learn?
Because so much kind of talk in the first half. I still really envy this lot because they have dialogue. I had monologues just going on and on about military stuff. So I'm sort of talking and thinking, well, how do I say that? But no, not so much now. But yeah, no, they're all great characters, and that's part of the thing. And it's kind of slightly, as you would have noticed, I'm sure, slightly heightened dialogue, which I think makes it very interesting. I actually, in a funny sort of way, I don't think it's that different to the Foresight saga, because one of the main themes of Foresight is the same as this. It's about duty as opposed to personal freedom.
Yeah.
And that's what Foresight, and in fact, that's what a lot of very good stories are about. So, yeah.
And then Sorcha, as a woman myself, I really identified with Louisa. And of course, whilst the forbidden love is obviously, the central aim of the piece, what comes across is that it is very much a triangle, but also the sexism in the society and your speech at the end about the women's roles, the tidy up speech, I think. Did that attract you when you read the script?
Massively. I mean, there was just a few. I think the wronged woman could quite easily become like an archetype, a bit of a stock character. But immediately I think it was like three things that when I read the script I was like, yes. The first was their friendship at the beginning, that actually there was these incredibly strong bond ties between the three of them. Platonic, romantic was all in the mix, because they're in their early 20s, what is effectively army summer camp. And I think that the threads of that leads all the way to the betrayal, and it's the double betrayal. I said in the audition as well, I think the three of them probably could have worked out something in the modern day that's like a good polyamorous sort of co-living situation. But obviously that was not available to them at the time. And then there was that final, I guess the final beat where you just know that down the line she will forgive him and they will find their friendship yet again because it was so strong at the beginning.
Yeah.
That for me was so strong because that level of, the ability to forgive to me is a strength, that she didn't demonstrate weakness there.
Well, it's so incredible that she gave him the watch, even though...
But it's a sense of responsibility in there as well, because we've talked about in the room that actually he's a widow as well. There is now a child in the picture. She's on her own with this child, and in a weird way they're going to make it strange and they're not getting together. But I think that in a strange way they're going to form a kind of unusual family unit, because she is, Soviet society is supposed to be equal between the sexes, but it obviously absolutely was not.
So do you think it is possible then to love two people deeply at the same time?
I think people have different. I think through understanding the conversations that we're capable of having nowadays about love and all the different forms it can take, and relationships and all the different constellations they can take, I do think it is possible, but they're not within the parameters of this society.
Nigel's not sure.
Oh, my wife's here. I can't say anything.
Okay, ready?
My fiance's here, so they're fine.
Alright. Okay, I have so many more questions, but that is the cue that it's time to hand over. So the first one here.
To Richard, the character General Ormond. Did you
Yes.
find that name or?
Oh, did you recognise that name?
Yes, I did.
What is the significance of this
Well,
name?
I got notes from Peter from Estonia,
Okay.
and they were all brilliant and constructive and wonderful notes. And for that particular scene, there's a little scenette as they're walking, and they mention Oromov. He just wrote, I like the James Bond reference. And he's the only person on any of the teams that went through it that got it. That got the God bless you. But yes, so yes, that is from yeah.
Does anyone have a he just revealed this to me, I didn't know, but did anyone spot the sci-fi reference?
Oh, from Star Trek 6. There's a joke from Star Trek 6.
That's your friend.
God, no, yes, and I've made him sit through that film a lot. Yes, there is. Did you spot it?
Yeah, in the original Russian.
Yeah, yes.
Fantastic.
It's Klingon.
Excellent, wonderful. Who's ahead here?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what was your guys' draw to the audition for the show?
With a draw?
Like, what drew you guys into wanting to audition for this piece? Was there anything specific or like?
Yeah.
Unemployment?
Maybe a different way to put it was what is it that you, when on first reading, that you like most about the character? Rob, what did you like most about Roman? What appealed?
Well, I think I read the script and it made me think about how many millions of people over generations of humankind have had to suffer in love and not be able to be who they want to be, not be able to love who they want to love, sometimes, at the risk of their own life. So it felt like quite a nice opportunity to kind of showcase that, and yeah, like I suppose shine a light on that, both historically and in a contemporary context, as people all over the world that are in that situation right now. So yeah, I thought it was quite powerful.
One of the, I know we don't talk about reviews, even though the reviews were fantastic, by the way, but there was a reference, one of them I thought was really appropriate, which is that there are still 64 countries in the world where homosexuality is illegal. And what is the situation now in Russia? Is it still 5 years hard labor? Do you know that?
There's an ironic couple of things that sort of came to pass as we were doing this. The situation in Russia, Article 121 was repealed just at the beginning of when it became the CIS in the early 90s, I think 93, and then Putin's sort of Section 28 style do not promote homosexuality came into effect in 2013. So post-Romanovs, the Russian state has had 20 years of being allowed to say you're gay. And now the situation is exactly as it was. But what was interesting is during the rehearsal period, the British Army, there's been a lot, you've probably seen it in the papers, the British Army have commemorated 25 years of allowing gays in the military, which was only legal in 2000. So before that, obviously homosexuality in this country is 67, but for the next, whatever it is, 33 years, it was illegal to be a serving officer and gay, and if you were caught, you were on a sex offenders register. So, we're having a pop at the Ruskies, but we were bloody awful at exactly the same time and for decades afterwards.
Right. Yes, and we won't even say what's happening in the US, which is my yes, and second to the back there, in the white. Yeah.
Thank you. Congratulations. As well as kind of like main story between the two young chaps, I thought what was really beautiful was the relation between Sorcha's character and Nigel's character. I thought right with the genders, right with age, right in that paternal thing. I just was wondering how much of that was your instincts from the script, more your creative ideas, more group. I'd love to know more about that. That's really beautiful insight as well.
Okay, so let's first from the Richard briefly.
This is why I write things down. I'm not very brief in public.
Talk about that key relationship between the Colonel and Louisa, and then I want to hear from Nigel and Sorcha about how you worked on that relationship together.
Well, briefly, it was something that comes more from the book than the film, but it was all to do with creating a world in which Sorcha's character Louisa is one of a triptych of characters that work together, and she needed a soulmate, she needed a confidant, and it was useful to give her a father figure. In the same way, it was useful for the father figure to have a daughter to confide in, which is a different relationship to a son. So it's all of these sorts of paternal kiddie dynamics that were inspired by, but mostly because of my fractious relationship with my own bloody parents. So yes.
Here tonight? No.
But yeah, that's sort of where it came from.
Okay, Nigel, tell us about developing that special bond.
Yeah, I think it's always been my favourite scene. in the play because, as I said earlier, part of the reason I was attracted to the part is that suddenly you see, having seen, I think in the script you described the Colonel as a martinet at work. You see the guy at work, and then you see him, and actually it humanises him, and it shows it's not about, and I don't think he is, being homophobic. I think it's about the distraction. So this guy's my best pilot, and I don't want him distracted from being that. And it wouldn't matter what that distraction is. And so I think there's a lot revealed, kind of in slightly disguised, which was a beautifully written scene, in that scene that it shows that he cares, it shows that she is really caring, and we kind of skirt round the main issue in a very human way, which is, as human beings, we do constantly. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, and actually it was quite funny, when we first worked on it, first I sat there and read it with Owen, he said, yeah, that's great, guys, but you're not as nice as that. And that's very modern. We're in 1978, and then so we sort of unpicked it a bit. And so trying to kind of, I think, what I'm trying to do in that scene is kind of try and give the right answers without giving too much away. And I think that's interesting drama, and that's down in. Do you know what I mean? And there are nights, which is quite interesting, where she says, oh, Sergei's always around, he's always out with Sergei, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I go, I can't remember the lines now, but it's something like, can I tell you something? And sometimes the audience go, oh.
But everyone's going,
yeah, thinking I'm going to go, well. And then actually just give some advice. And it's really clever that it keeps you on. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that is good. And then when you say boys will be boys, and there's this whole tittering around the room.
yeah.
It's so sad because it's like you say later, you were fighting the realization in your own mind.
Yeah, and she's really gaslit herself throughout this whole thing, and I think that she's not an idiot. There's just this level of like trust in people that love her. But it's interesting when we first did that scene, that modern sensibility of being. I read it and performed it exactly as the subtext was saying. Oh, I'm really depressed. Therefore, I'm going to play really depressed and emotional. Actually, what I've loved about playing this character, she's grown up with 6 brothers. She lives in a military environment. Not very close to her parents, this is her father figure. So there isn't a world in which, not like my lovely friends where I just have been blunt to them all the time and tell them exactly what's happening in my life. It was a really nice character to play, someone who just has to hold everything back, everything. And if there's cracks come through, they have to be kind of swallowed up immediately. And yeah, that cafe scene is one of my favourites as well.
What?
I love that the subplot is so engaging to the audience as well.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the central relationship between Roman and Sergei. Did you two work on that together, Theo, Rob?
A lot of hard work.
From Theo.
From Theo, yeah. No, I can only speak for myself, but I would consider Theo a very close friend now. No, we just get on really well and have a great time. We had such a good time rehearsing it. And in terms of, it can be quite hard to sort of create a chemistry between characters if your relationship feels a bit forced, sort of interpersonally. But we just giggle and laugh and have fun.
And has anyone ever got hurt in the sparring?
No, but there was an instance with the walking stick throw. Where, I bottled it basically. The bottom of the walkway was blocked by someone, and I was so worried about hitting them, I basically pelted it at Theo. I went through his arms and into his face. And then the next line is, what's the matter? So I just went, what? And he was like,
my chin is like doubled inside, rubbing the rest of the play. Like, everything's fine. I think trust is a big thing. You've got to trust who you're working with, and luckily, like, these 3 people are just stunning to work with. I'm learning so much just from being in the same room as them. It's quite funny because I say, hey, this has been really easy. We all get on. Everything's great. We're all putting up with it. There's no difficult characters. No one's annoying. And then someone, I can't remember who told me, they said, well, if you're thinking that means you're the annoying one.
And is Roman the Firebird? Is he? I mean, and I kept thinking, like, is he not taking these missions genuinely as a suicide mission because he can't choose, or he feels so conflicted in himself?
what do you think, Richard?
Yes, Yes.
I think that.
I think he is. It was a name and a piece chosen as much by Peter for his film to describe jets, I suppose, in the most literal sense. But the history of the Firebird, which Roman relates, which the ballet touches on, but it's very big in Slavic folklore, and it is this strange mystical creature that does good things and bad, and yet is still prized because the good it might do is worth the sacrifice, and that very much is a metaphor for Rome. That love is worth, it's worth the price that's paid at the end. I mean, it's almost a Faustian pact, but that's a different play, and I've not adapted that yet. So
next time, I think we've got time for maybe one or two more questions. Okay, now all the hands go up. Yes. Okay, so let's hear them all, and we'll decide which one we want to answer. Okay? Front row.
I just want to say that I was really struck at how Roman rushed and grabbed Sergei and passionately kissed him. I feel that I should learn from that.
We should hold on to the people we love.
Cuddle and kiss more.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There was a hand back there, yeah.
I guess the final scene keeps it deliberately open-ended, but how do sort of Sergei and Lucy see Roman? Is there any resentment, or is there full forgiveness? Do they just see him as a victim of society? Are they all victims? How do we? Yeah.
What is the final judgment of?
I'll get back to the gin. Go on.
And I'm also wondering, do we know? I mean, we know what happened to the real Sergei. Do we know what happened to the real Louisa?
We do, but it's probably a secret better kept for the book and the film. It's not happy.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So, but this is a different take on it. This is a different Louisa, and her life may or may not be happier than the real Louisa.
But so this Sergei and Louisa, how do your characters feel about Roman in the end? I see a lot of forgiveness there. Sorcha, you already mentioned.
Yeah, forgiveness down the line. I've got a new baby. I think there's a lot of. I think especially going into that scene, we would have just stood there and heard, as we do at funerals, all of the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things without any space for betrayal. And she hasn't had that confrontation. So I feel like so much of the confrontation with Sergei is a confrontation that she wished she could have had with Roman. I think there is an absolute bitterness at the secrecy and the compartmentalization that's happened, because that is just like, it's me, it's your friend first and foremost. To the idea that he couldn't have trusted her with any of that information, I think is a huge betrayal. But I think she will reach forgiveness, and I think they're going to go off and have a few drinks, the two of us, and share some tales.
And Theo, what's your take?
Yeah, well, I also think the added part of living in a world where your love is forbidden and you can't talk about it with your closest friend. That you're so inhibited. There's so much you want to say, and there's so much you can't. And that is what something that when I read the play, I absolutely loved about it, because a lot of it is what the characters aren't saying to each other. And I remember just reading that. It might be because I was on a plane and it was very high for me. But I finished it. But I was burst into tears as soon as I finished it, because I thought it was beautiful.
I cried on a train too. It happens on
transport.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that added, obviously I think he wants to tell his best friend everything, but he can't open that conversation, and then she's the one who makes that first offer, which is something that I loved about it. And then there's that hint of reconciliation that they're on the precipice of. But you're right, I mean, what happens when they leave that room? Do they back out? Or do they
It's so terrifying, isn't it, though? Because it could be, to know, you have no idea how your friend's going to react. She could be responsible for sending him to hard labour, which could be wrong. I mean, to be in that environment where even your trusted folks could be could turn you into the authorities is absolutely inconceivable and terrifying.
So I'm going to ask Rich to summarize something briefly, and then I'm going to ask a final silly question of you each, so just prepare for that. But Rich, so we've talked about the personal elements of the story of the real Sergei, but why else do you think now is a particularly resonant time to stage Firebird? Lots of geopolitical tie-ins as well, but echoes in history.
I think the geopolitics, the invasion of Afghanistan. Brief. I'll just give you a little brief history of the Brezhnev Doctrine. In 1967, Brezhnev had this idea that all communist countries should support one another, which basically is Russia's excuse to invade anybody. And they used it for Afghanistan, they used it for Vietnam, Vietnam, and most recently the Ukraine. But the geopolitics, I think, is, although interesting and pertinent and timely, I think that's grist to the mill of the central story, which is a story. They do happen to be gay men, or at least one of them is what you would call a gay man now. The others. I mean, we talked about the sexuality of Rome is possibly more complicated or different. Not necessarily more complicated. I've known very, very simple bisexuals, but we can edit this. Honestly, we can edit this, right? But I think any story that has a love that hurts no one, that brings only happiness, but is crushed by a larger power, godlike power, and I use that word specifically, that makes it forbidden, which we still have everywhere for all kinds of loves. That means, sadly, that plays like this are still very timely. So yes, that's why.
It is very timely. Now, so you can also, in addition to telling everyone that you, by the way, audience, you are now champions for Firebird. So I need you to go forward, spread it on social media, stop people in the street, grab flyers, come again. It's here at the King's Head until the 9th of February. In addition, you must also get the program. There's a great program note which gives you more details of the wonderful Sergei's real story. Great program note. And you can also buy in the theatre the original memoir. And this, I'm told people have record players again now. So, yes, you can buy this here. Did you know?
Oh yeah, no, just said you get commission.
And the film is available to watch, rent or buy from BF5 player, I think, online. So it's streaming online. It's still
I
available.
think it's also on Prime still.
Prime, still on Prime. Very good. Okay, so actors. This is the silly one. Okay, in the Theo's character Sergei goes to drama school, and Sorcha asks, have you learned all of the faces? So I want to see your best drama school faces. Choose the emotion. We have to we're have to guess.
I think Theo should take the lead.
Like a comedian.
Which emotion was that?
I think it's called Blue Steel.
Oh, Blue Steel. Sorcha, give us a face.
That's what you get.
Nigel, you're
I'll take requests.
Okay. Request? Who has a request of a face for Nigel? Joy.
No
Joy.
request.
I don't do Joy. No, it's not my repertoire.
Just-
Joy!
Then who's got a request for Rob? Shout out an emotion. Anger. This is the creme de la creme of acting we've got here. So once we give them all a big clap, I'm gonna group them together, and those of you who are on social media, please do get out your phones, take photos, share them, make sure you tag them all in the show and the theatre. You've been a wonderful audience.